In the gospel today, Jesus talks about marriage, and he says that from the beginning, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become flesh. He looks back to how God made us. And in our culture today, we're very much passing by the fact that our bodies mean anything. That we say, well, the body isn't really that important. It's what we feel like in our mind that's important. But there is a nuptial meaning to the body. God made our bodies for a specific reason, male and female. And when we look at a man and his body, there are parts of him that don't make sense unless there is woman. And if you look at woman and her body and parts of her, they don't make sense unless there's man. There's parts that only together, as husband and wife, becoming one flesh, that they actually make sense. That God made our flesh as a reflection of His life, of who He is, of how He wants union with you. And when, for instance, St. Paul is looking for a suitable analogy, he looks and he's, for a husband and wife, he says, it's Christ and His church. This is how He wants to unite Himself to us. And right here on the cross is His marriage bed, where He says, this is my body, given up for you. I was at a talk this past week, and one of the lines that the speaker gave, who was talking about the feminist revolution and how the sexual revolution took over the feminist revolution, she said, the sexual revolution gave all sorts of lies. And one of the lies is that we would be free. And they forgot to say free from what? And she said, free from having to sacrifice yourself for love. And this is the heart of what it means to be human. That we're called to sacrifice ourselves for love. Every relationship that's worth being a relationship has to sacrifice itself in some way. And we do it for love. And that's how we show the person we love that we love them. The two shall become one flesh. They sacrifice themselves for love of the other. And of course, there are lots of reasons why people get divorced today. Some of them have to do with things like, for instance, abuse and things like that. But I've heard too many sad stories of people, they fell out of love. They don't understand that it's more than that. That at the very heart, love isn't about a feeling, but it's about, I'm going to sacrifice myself for the other, even when the feelings aren't there. God made it this way. I mean, are there struggles? Yes. And for those ways, the church does have a way when people get divorced to look, was there a sacrament there or not? And so we have the annulment process so that people could then have their marriages regularized in the church. But at the heart of it, we have to look, God made this a permanent, total, faithful, and free union of husband and wife. It's a hard saying. And as I was pondering over what I wanted to speak about this weekend, I was saying, well, today's the Feast of the Holy Rosary. Maybe I'll speak about the Rosary. Or today is Respect Life Sunday. Maybe I'll talk about respecting life. But the Lord kept saying, no, go back to this, go back to this. And I want you to know I've struggled about how to say this, because this isn't something our culture wants to hear. That our maleness and our femaleness is important. That we were made by God a certain way. And our bodies matter. That husband and wife were meant by God to be forever until death do us part. And I'm not sure that I'll be able to speak clearly and cogently on this. But I do want to say, God's plan is for joy. And He wants us to be open to His plan and what that looks like. And that love, which is what we're here for. Love of God, being loved by God, love of each other. Love is about sacrificing ourselves for the other. As a priest, my sacrifice may look different from a husband or a wife, but I do have to sacrifice myself for love of you. And I apologize, there are a lot of times I don't sacrifice myself. I'd rather go and read or hang out by myself or do other things. But I know to be priest, I have to sacrifice myself for love of you. If we struggle with some of this, if we say, well, I don't understand how it is that God is working in this, and it doesn't make sense to me, that's okay. It's okay to struggle. It's better than giving in and just saying, I don't care what the church says, I don't care what God says, I'm going to believe my own thing. But rather, in the struggle, let us ask God for wisdom. Say, God, pour out your Spirit upon me because I don't understand. I don't get this. I don't get how this is supposed to be. I don't get how your plan is for male to be male and female to be female and for marriage to be between a man and a woman. God, help me to understand. In the midst of this, I also just want to say one other thing, and that is the church doesn't hate the people that struggle with these issues. The church wants to embrace all people in her arms because we know that God has given us life through the sacraments and through His church. But the church also has to speak, like Jesus, hard truths sometimes. And saying, this is the way we were built. This is the way we were meant to be. So let us ask God for that wisdom, that courage, that love, to be able to look at these hard issues and allow God to speak His words of life and wisdom and love to our hearts.